All right, let's get right into it. We're taking a close look at a promotion within the Indian Army that has ignited a major national controversy.
And at the heart of all of this is one single driving question. When an officer formerly accused of terrorism is promoted to brigadier, what does that really mean?
To even start to unpack that, you got to go way back, tracing this story through a legal fight that dragged on for nearly 2 whole decades. In that fight, it ended with a controversial acquittal that, for many people, left behind way more questions than answers. And all of that leads us right here, to this promotion. A move so unusual, it's got people seriously worried about the very fabric of a deeply respected national institution. Okay, so to really understand what all the fuss is about, we have to open the case file on the man at the very center of this storm, Lieutenant Colonel Shrikant Purohit. Now, this timeline from our source material really maps out the whole journey. It all kicks off in 2008 with a bomb blast in Malegaon. Purohit, who was a military intelligence officer at the time, gets arrested. The allegation? That he was linked to the Hindu extremist group Abhinav Bharat. He then spends 9 years in jail before the Supreme Court grants him bail in 2017. And then, to illustrate the conclusion of this long saga, the source uses these projected dates to show an acquittal in 2025, followed by the promotion to brigadier in 2026. You know, with all the back and forth about the law and the politics, it is so important not to forget the human side of this. 6 people, 6 civilians, lost their lives in that blast back in 2008. All right, let's shift gears and look at the official objections. We're talking about military experts, people who know the system inside and out, raising concerns. The big question is, was this a breach of protocol? And that's really the core of the procedural argument, isn't it? Does this promotion actually follow the Army's own established rules, the rules they've followed for years and years? So according to the source, experts are pointing to some huge red flags. First off, a massive lack of command experience. They say he never actually led a regiment or a battalion. That alone raises questions about whether he was even eligible for a brigade command. Then there's stuff like field service, key criteria that they argue just weren't met. And the worry is, this doesn't just bypass other officers who might be more deserving, it sets a really troubling precedent for the entire institution. And this is where you can really see the contrast. A typical career path to brigadier is a long road. You command a regiment, you get tons of field experience, you're on continuous active duty. But Purohit's path, it's a completely different story. No major unit command, 17 years away from active service because of the legal case, and then boom, a promotion right after the acquittal. So you might be wondering how his career was just on pause all that time. Well, for all those years, he was under something called a D&V ban. That stands for Discipline and Vigilance. Think of it like a freeze button on an officer's career. No regular duties, no promotions, nothing, while an inquiry or a legal case is going on. So this promotion didn't just move him forward, it was like hitting thaw and fast forward all at once. Okay, so we've talked about the procedure, the rules, but the source material goes a lot deeper, into a much bigger political argument. It frames this whole thing within what it calls the saffronization thesis. Basically the idea that Hindu nationalist ideology is making its way into major state institutions. And let's be really clear here, the source isn't pulling any punches. It alleges this promotion isn't just a one-off. It quotes Dr. Mukesh Kumar, who says, the Modi government is trying to change the character of the Indian Army, injecting it with Hindutva ideology and diluting its secular character. So this view frames the promotion as a piece of a much larger puzzle. And according to the source, this fits into a broader pattern. They point to other examples, right? Like senior army officers making public religious displays, something that was traditionally avoided to keep the institution secular. Or officers openly backing government policies. The source also connects this to acquittals in other cases involving people from Hindutva backgrounds, and what it calls the glorification of figures like Pragya Thakur, who, remember, was also an accused in this same Malegaon case. All right, but what about the other side? Supporters of this promotion have an argument, and involves drawing a line back to one of India's military legends. But the real question is, does that comparison actually hold any water? Yeah, so the argument you'll often hear defending this promotion brings up the name Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw, one of the most revered figures in Indian military history. The claim is that he, too, got a big promotion without the usual command experience. But when you actually put the two cases side by side, the source argues they're just not the same. At all. I mean, Manekshaw was never accused of a crime, let alone terrorism. He was in active service the whole time. Purohit was away for 17 years. The charges against Purohit were incredibly serious. We're talking about a bomb blast that killed people. And finally, Manekshaw's promotion wasn't controversial at all, while this one has kicked off a huge national debate.
So what's the bottom line here? According to the critics cited in our source, that comparison is just not valid. They say trying to put a celebrated war hero in the same boat as an officer who is acquitted of terrorism is a fundamentally flawed argument.
So where does that leave us? Well, with two totally different ways of looking at this. On one hand, is this an officer's honor being rightfully restored after a long legal fight? Or, on the other, is it a politically driven move that could shake the very foundations of a national institution? And that brings us to the final, really critical question that our source material leaves us to think about. At the end of the day, what is the true cost of breaking a precedent?